Oh, why did you start the broadcast?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have about 30 members on the line. So I think, okay. So right now,
Please.
okay, so you have the organizer and the presenter rights at the moment. So when you run the slideshow, you should automatically see, right now you're not in the slideshow mode. You run the presentation.
If I put it like this,
Bottom right
yes.
corner.
I can now see the presenter's view, and but it seems. What can you see now?
I can see your other slides also. Yeah,
yes,
the notes.
but that doesn't work.
No. So, do you have two monitors in front of you?
I have one monitor.
One monitor. And in sharing, I think there should be an option to share. Why is it showing two screens? It's showing your. Can you press F5 on the keyboard?
Yes.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today on this very interesting and popular topic around tax as a force for good, rebalancing our tax systems to support a global economy which is fit for the future. Today we have with us Yen-Pei Chen. I'll just introduce her. We also have Femke with us. And the third speaker for today is Omer Zaheer Meer. So I'll very quickly introduce the three speakers, and then I'll do some housekeeping, after which I'll hand over to Yen-Pei. So about Yen-Pei, Yen-Pei is a tax and corporate reporting manager within ACCA's Professional Insights team. And I hope all of you know the Professional Insights team churns out a lot of technical, highly popular reports on different subjects. Yen-Pei is leading research and policy input and public speaking engagement in the areas of tax, integrated reporting, and corporate reporting. She's a qualified accountant and contributes regularly to consultation input both at the national and EU levels. In the UK, she engages directly with HM Revenue and Customs to advise the tax administration on tax policy matters. Yen-Pei is ACCA's lead for the report tax as a force for good, rebalancing our tax system to support a global economy fit for the future, which is the report that we're going to discuss today. As well as the Insights into Integrated Reporting series. Yen-Pei is a member of the UK HM Revenue and Customs Tax and Accounting Working Group and participates in Accountancy Europe's Corporate Reporting Policy Working Group. Yen-Pei also convenes ACCA's Global Forum for Taxation, and I must mention that Omer is a member of the forum as well, representing Pakistan. Prior to joining ACCA, she worked as a subject matter expert, audit and corporate reporting for BPP Learning Media, authoring learning and reference material for accountancy students and finance professionals. As corporate tax advisor at EY, she also has extensive experience advising and auditing multinational groups and SMEs from diverse sectors. She has a master's in European business from the European School of Management and a BA from the University of Cambridge. Thank you very much, Yen-Pei, for joining us, and welcome to the webinar. Our next speaker is Femke, and Femke is the president and wave maker Tax. You can see Femke, the video just came on. Femke is the co-author and president of the Tax project. The website, if you want to access it, is www.x-tax.com. A think tank focused on fiscal innovations to boost the SDGs and the inclusive circular economy. The foundation works with experts and business leaders to enhance the understanding of dynamics of tax shift from labor to natural resource use and pollution, which is what we were discussing over yesterday, if you remember, in the session that we were holding. Femke is an analyst, advisor, publicist, and a public speaker. Between 1999 and 2009, she was an investment manager at Xtax Greens Venture Capital, a Dutch impact investment fund. And our third panelist for today is Omer Zaheer Meer. Omer is a managing partner for Millennium Law Corporate Company, and he looks after the corporate and tax law at MLCC. Omer is also the chair of the Members Network Panel for Pakistan, and is also the head of the Taxation Subcommittee for Pakistan. And like I already said before, Omer represents Pakistan on ACCA's Global Taxation Forum as well. So that was the introduction of the panelists. Very quickly, some housekeeping rules. All the participants throughout the call will stay on mute. You have since you've joined, you have an extra menu available to you through which you will be able to ask your questions. So if you notice in that menu, there is a questions dialog box. You can type in your questions, and those questions will be picked up by us, and I will then, during the question and answer break or the question and answer session in the end, I will put up those questions to the panelists. So as we go along, I will encourage all the participants to keep typing in their questions, keep sending us your questions, and depending upon the relevance and importance of the question, we will then select them and put them on to put the questions up to the panelist. Secondly, a video recording of this webinar will be available to you for later viewing, which means if you want to revisit some of the content of this webinar, you will be able to do that. And straight after this session, all the participants should receive an email with the recording link from our side. Third, and last but not the least, all the participants of this webinar will receive a participation certificate from ACCA, which you can use as an evidence for your CPD. Those who view the session afterwards, which means they view the recording, they will be able to claim non-verifiable CPD units from the webinar. Thank you very much. With that, I will hand over to our first panelist, Yen-Pei, to run us through her presentation. Yen-Pei, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Harun. Femke, if you could move the slide on. So it's a real pleasure to be here talking to you today. And as Harun has done the introductions, I'm delighted to be joined by Femke, who's written the Tax as a Force for Good report, and also by Omer, who as our Global Tax Global Forum member has been very much inputting into this project, and especially taking the idea also to policymakers in Pakistan. So it's a real pleasure for the three of us to talk to you. On to the next slide, please. So as Harun mentioned, I work in the Professional Insights team. So in case some of you may not be familiar with what we do, I thought I'll just talk to you briefly about our work. So if the Professional Insights team has a strapline, it would be something like answering today's questions and preparing us for tomorrow. And this means we seek to answer the big questions around what it is to be an accountant. And we share our findings as widely as possible. So this starts inevitably with always trying to understand some of the trends that is happening around the world right now, and thinking about their wider impact, especially on the accountancy profession, but also us as human beings living on this small planet. Why is the Professional Insights team well placed to do this forward thinking? Well, we use our global reach across 179 countries and network of experts, and they help us to understand those forces that are shaping accountancy. And Professional Insights basically work to make sure that ACCA keeps leading thinking in different fields, and we influence public policy, and also we try to shape business practice on the key issues that affect accountancy. Next slide, please. So going back to, next slide after that, if you can. So going back to a year ago, or slightly more than that, when I was starting to formulate the idea for this project, it's quite a sort of personal motivation for me that got me thinking about how tax or our policies might be forces for good. If you could just click once more. I just want to show you where I come from. So I hail from Taichung. It's this little, it's the third largest city on the little island of Taiwan. And you can see it's surrounded by mountains, and it's quite a scenic city. But recently, the outlook for Taichung has changed quite a bit. So if you could click again. And this is because of what you see here. And if you could click again, sorry. Now it's much harder to see the mountains that surround Taiwan, and it's because of the Taichung power plant. It's the largest coal burning plant in the world. And for me, living in the UK, going back to Taiwan, the change has been very sudden. And you can see how quickly a policy as in Taiwan to switch from producing power through nuclear generation to coal can have a big impact on to everyone's lives on the island. So I started thinking about how in my role I might be able to affect some change. Now, Harun mentioned I also work on integrated reporting, and in that field, there's lots of discussions about how businesses should be more transparent in their external reporting on wider impacts, their impact on the environment and on society. But most of the time, these costs are theoretical, and as we look at reporting, you find that apart from the enlightened and responsible companies, most company boards are realistically not going to sit up and pay attention until the externalities hit the business's bottom line. And I think that's where tax comes in, because it does have the ability to hit the business's bottom line. And also, unlike direct regulation that just bans undesirable behavior, it's also a way to bring revenue to the governments, and that allows governments to then reinvest them for inclusive growth. And that's really sort of what's really attracted me and my teams to Femke's idea of the tax shift. So really looking at tax as one holistic system and not trying to achieve sort of one limited outcome, but also looking at how we can use tax revenues to wider societal benefits as well. So if we can move on to the next slide. We've got a global conversation going around this proposal that you're going to hear very shortly from Femke. We've held a webinar in Canada, and earlier in the year there was a conference that we jointly hosted with Deloitte in Brussels, attended by EU commissioners and policymakers. In Pakistan, there we had a roundtable jointly organized with SERB, which Omer also spoke at. And then we also worked with ICMAB to deliver a seminar which Femke presented to a very interested audience in Bangladesh. So we do definitely want to continue the conversation right through to 2020. And for this, we want to hear from you. So please do keep sending your reactions and your questions through to us during this session. And if you have anything that you would like to raise, or like us to think about, do drop us an email. I'll have the contact details at the end of this presentation. So with that, I will hand over to Femke to talk to you about what it is we're proposing. Oops, sorry.
Hello, everybody.
Couple of slides more. Some questions. Are we able to do the poll on this session? I think the first.
Yes,
Great. So the first question is just to help us understand a little bit of your involvement with tax. So either you work as a tax practitioner, so you're very familiar with it, or you deal with tax policy in government, or you may not work directly in tax but get pulled into tax-related work from time to time, or you are a tax advisor and that's your only involvement. Give you a few minutes to answer.
Yen-Pei, either you, Femke, or Harun, being the organizers, would need to create a poll so that the participants can then choose the relevant option and cast their votes.
I see.
I think that will take a bit of time, so the participants can just type in their option in the questions box.
Okay. So, so is it possible to see the responses, or it will only be narrative question responses from the questions box?
Yeah, through the question.
Right. Third and fourth option. And it's good that there are multiple answers coming through. Okay, so it seems some of you work in tax policy, and the majority of you don't work as a tax practitioner as such, but do have some level of interaction with tax. That's great. Thank you very much. So if we move on to the next slide, again, then we'll be looking for your responses from the questions box. This is just to get an initial idea. Do you think governments shift their tax burdens from labor to natural resources and consumption? So without the sort of context for now that you will get later on. So either you agree with the proposal, you feel neutral about the proposal, or you're unsure, or you disagree. Any questions? Any points coming through on that? Don't seem to have. Okay. Some of those are
it's mostly agree and neutral.
Okay. Okay, so we're starting from a good base then. Great.
So only probably one individual who disagrees, rest of them, they all agree.
Staying quiet.